So we're talking about tackling some of the biggest challenges facing, global food security,
Exactly.
like feeding a growing population in a changing climate.
That's right.
This is incredible, but I know this is a topic that can be controversial.
It can be, yeah.
Genetically modified foods, GMOs.
Right.
I mean, some people might be hesitant about CRISPR-edited crops.
Sure.
So how do we address those concerns?
Well, I think transparency and open dialogue are really crucial. But, it's important to remember that humans have been modifying crops for centuries
Right.
through selective breeding.
Oh, of course, yeah.
CRISPR is simply a more precise and targeted way of doing what we've already been doing.
So instead of crossbreeding plants over generations to get the desired traits, we can now make those changes directly at the genetic level
Exactly.
with much greater control.
That's right.
And with CRISPR, we can introduce specific changes without adding any foreign DNA.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction.
So that's different from some older GMO techniques that involved inserting genes from other organisms,
Right.
which did raise concerns for some people.
It did.
So CRISPR-edited crops could potentially address some of those earlier concerns about GMOs and offer a more transparent and controlled approach to crop improvement.
I think that's a real possibility.
But as with any powerful technology, careful risk assessment and open communication are essential.
Oh, absolutely.
Public perception and acceptance will play a huge role in how CRISPR is adopted in agriculture.
I agree.
It's a conversation we need to have as a society, for sure.
We do.
CRISPR clearly has the potential to, kind of reshape how we grow and produce food.
It does.
I think it's time to circle back to those ethical considerations we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Specifically, the potential for human germline editing.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about making changes that would be passed down to future generations.
It's a big deal. It really is.
Raises significant questions about our responsibility to those future generations.
A lot to ponder. It is.
I mean, the idea of eradicating genetic diseases is incredibly compelling, but,
Of course.
the potential for unintended consequences, and even the creation of a society where certain genetic traits are favored over others.
Right.
I mean, it's a daunting prospect.
It is. It's a classic dilemma, weighing those potential benefits against unknown risks.
And there are some people who argue that we have a moral imperative to use this technology to alleviate suffering.
Yeah. Are.
But we also need to consider the possibility of unintended consequences for, the human gene pool and what it means to be human.
Absolutely.
It sounds like we're wading into some seriously deep philosophical waters here.
We are. These are big questions.
And these conversations, they're not just happening in academic circles, are they?
No.
These are global conversations.
They are.
There have been international efforts to establish guidelines for the responsible use of CRISPR, especially regarding germline editing.
Yes, they're happening.
Back in 2015, there was that landmark international summit on human gene editing in Washington, D.C.
Right.
to address these ethical concerns.
Exactly.
So what was the outcome of that summit?
Well, while they acknowledged the potential benefits of CRISPR, they really emphasized the need for caution, further research, and broad societal consensus before any clinical use of germline editing in humans.
So no green light for designer babies just yet.
Not yet.
It sounds like a wise and cautious approach,
I think so, yeah.
given the stakes.
Definitely.
And these conversations are ongoing, right? We haven't reached a final verdict on the ethics of CRISPR and germline editing.
We haven't. These debates are far from over.
Okay.
The ethical and societal implications of CRISPR will continue to evolve as the technology itself advances.
And as we grapple with its immense potential and its inherent risks.
Right. It's an ongoing conversation.
It is. It's fascinating. It's scary.
It is both.
And it's really important. Welcome back to the final part of our CRISPR deep dive. We've seen how this gene editing tool is, poised to revolutionize medicine and agriculture.
It is. It's amazing.
But there's even more to uncover.
Oh, there is so much more.
It's like the CRISPR story just keeps getting wilder and wilder.
It does, yeah.
Okay, so what else can this technology do? Give me more mind-blowing CRISPR moments.
Well, one area that I think is particularly fascinating is this concept of gene drives.
Gene drives?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty intense. What are we talking about here?
Imagine having the power to spread a specific genetic trait through an entire population.
Wow.
That's the goal of gene drives.
Okay.
They use CRISPR to ensure that a particular gene is inherited by almost all offspring.
So we're essentially overriding the normal rules of inheritance.
That's right. It's powerful stuff.
It sounds incredibly powerful, but I have to admit, it also makes me a little bit uneasy.
I understand that.
So what are the potential applications of this? Why would we want to do this?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of buzz is using gene drives to control or even eliminate populations of disease-carrying insects. For example, imagine releasing genetically modified mosquitoes that can't transmit malaria.
So we could potentially eradicate malaria by altering the mosquito population.
That's the idea.
That would be absolutely life-changing for global health.
It would, especially in those regions where malaria is endemic.
But of course, there are ecological considerations to think about here, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, releasing gene drives into the environment, that could have unforeseen consequences for ecosystems, right?
It could.
We have to proceed really carefully here.
We do, with a deep understanding of the risks and benefits.
It's like we're holding this, scalpel that can reshape the very fabric of life.
It's a powerful tool.
The potential for good is enormous.
It is.
But the risks are equally profound.
They are.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is. You've hit the nail on the head.
I read that scientists are also using CRISPR for something called epigenome editing. What is that all about? It sounds really complex.
Well, remember how we talked about CRISPR being used to turn genes on or off? Epigenome editing takes that a step further.
Okay.
So instead of altering the actual DNA sequence, it focuses on modifying those chemical tags that attach to DNA and control how genes are expressed.
So instead of changing the letters of the genetic code, we're tweaking the punctuation marks that tell the cell how to read those letters.
That's a great way to put it.
It sounds like we're getting even more granular in our control over gene expression.
We are. It's very precise.
And that could be incredibly useful in medicine, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, imagine being able to fine-tune the expression of genes involved in diseases without permanently altering the DNA sequence itself.
Exactly. That's the potential.
That's amazing.
It is.
Epigenome editing offers a more nuanced approach to gene regulation.
It does.
And it could have so many applications, treating diseases, improving crop yields, even understanding the complex interplay between genes and the environment.
Right? It's a whole new frontier.
Wow, CRISPR just keeps revealing new layers of complexity and possibility.
It does.
It's like peeling back an endless onion of scientific discovery.
I like that analogy.
It's been an amazing journey exploring the world of CRISPR with you today.
It has.
From, actually editing genes to diagnosing diseases, transforming agriculture, grappling with these profound ethical questions.
It's mind-boggling, really.
It really is.
When you think about it.
This technology is poised to change the world as we know it.
It is, and it's been a pleasure diving into these complex topics with you.
It has been a pleasure.
And I hope our listeners have gained a new appreciation for the power and potential of CRISPR.
Absolutely.
As well as, the importance of thoughtful and ethical considerations as we venture into this uncharted territory.
To our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring this fascinating field. Ask questions, engage in conversations, and stay curious.
The future of CRISPR, and perhaps the future of humanity, is being written right now.
And we all have a role to play in shaping that future.
We do.
Until next time, keep diving deep.